The first thing I ever heard about it was that it was officially designated as a haunted house by the United States Department of Commerce. That alone was unsettling enough, but its history went deeper. Its construction on land that was once a cemetery and a public gallows, the tragic deaths that occurred within its walls, the final scream of Yankee Jim on that very ground. Even amidst the sunny, vibrant atmosphere of San Diego, they said this house, located in the heart of Old Town, carried its own dark cloud. Just as Myrtle's plantation held cursed magnolias, Salem bore the curse of the witch hunt, or Waverly Hills echoed with sanatorium screams. Whaley House, on its own scale, was the embodiment of American tragedy, a buried past, and a haunted family. To see the pain ingrained in its walls and the true face of that officially designated haunting, I set out on that autumn evening. As I drove toward San Diego, the shimmer of the modern city slowly gave way to the historical atmosphere of Old Town. The cobblestone streets, the old buildings, the palpable sense of stepping back in time. But beneath this historical charm, there was an unease, a tension. As I approached the Whaley House, even from a distance, it looked grand and beautiful. Its white walls, green shutters, and wide veranda made it a classic Southern California home. Yet the invisible weight that hung over it, that deep silence, overshadowed its beauty. As I got closer, I caught a faint, strange, old smell in the air, like dust, old wood, and something else. Something I couldn't quite place, but that felt nauseating. It was maybe the smell of the earth, of damp decay, but something more personal, more tied to memory. When I stepped onto the lawn in front of the house, the air suddenly turned cold, noticeably colder than the surrounding temperature, as if I had walked into an invisible wall of ice. The moment I stepped through the front door, a sharp, bone-chilling cold hit me, in stark contrast to the air outside. The lobby opened into what was once the general store area at the front of the house, an old scale, shelves, antique items. It felt as if time had stopped here. But in the air, that strange old odor was more intense. The smell of earth, mold, and perhaps death. It was heavy, stagnant, and undeniably unpleasant. While the staff offered the kind of information tourists expect, in their eyes and the tone of their voices, there was an awareness of the house's extraordinary nature, perhaps even a respect or fear. I joined the special night tour. Our guide, his flashlight beam cutting through the dim rooms, began recounting the history of the house and its tragic stories. Everything started with the land upon which the house was built. This was formerly one of San Diego's first public cemeteries, and worst of all, in 1852, just 5 years before the house was constructed, was the site of a public gallows where a man named Yankee Jim Robinson was hanged. The guide told us that Yankee Jim had been found guilty of grand larceny and was executed. They say the site of the gallows is located exactly where the staircase or the upstairs rooms now stand, the guide said, his voice trembling slightly. And Yankee Jim's spirit is believed to have cursed the land and the house, and he still wanders here, especially on the stairs. A shiver went down my spine. The guide continued with the history of the house and the Whaley family. Thomas Whaley's ambitions, his decision to build the house, his dream of making it a center for his businesses and family. But dreams turned into nightmares. The misfortunes that befell the house, the store burning down, business failures, and most tragically, the deaths that occurred within the house. The guide recounted that in 1860, just 3 years after the house was built, baby Thomas Jr., only 18 months old, passed away here. There were stories that the spirit of little Thomas still wandered the house, his laughter and cries sometimes heard. Then the story came to Violet Whaley. Thomas Whaley's daughter, Violet, after an unhappy attempted marriage, fell into depression, and in 1885, on the upper floor of the house, in the hallway leading to her father's cherished courtroom, she shot herself, committing suicide. The guide said that Violet's spirit was still felt and sometimes seen in that hallway and where she died. He also mentioned that during the period the house served as a courthouse, one of the judges, George P. Ames, also ended his own life in the upstairs courtroom. The walls of this house had witnessed not just family tragedies, but also legal disappointments and violent ends. The guide added that the spirits of Thomas Whaley, due to his frustrations with his businesses in the house, and his loyal wife, Anna Whaley, grieving for her family and home, were also believed to wander the house. Thomas was said to be seen typically in the parlor or the old store area, while Anna was seen more often in the garden or upstairs rooms. The guide mentioned the house's famous mirror, about which it was rumored to show strange reflections of those who died, or even those who were living. As the tour progressed, the mansion's atmosphere grew heavier. The felt coldness and that strange odor intensified. As the guide spoke of paranormal events in specific spots, the shiver I felt upon reaching those spots increased. As we approached the staircase, the guide again reminded us of Yankee Jim's story. As I stepped onto the treads, I felt a slight swaying, a tension in the air, as if someone was still there. When the tour ended, it was pitch black outside, and the town had fallen silent. After most of the group had left, I and a few other brave enthusiasts remained alone inside the mansion. Now the stories the guide had told mixed with the echo of our own voices, becoming even more real. We began to explore the mansion. Each room had its own distinct atmosphere. Entering the front parlor where the guide said Thomas Whaley was seen, I suddenly felt the air grow cold, and a faint, stale smell of cigar smoke hit my nostrils, then vanished. Moving to the living room, that old-fashioned perfume scent became more pronounced. It was sweet, but melancholic, as if Anna Whaley had just passed by. The stairs. This was the place I feared most. As I ascended these wooden steps, believed to be Yankee Jim's last resting place, my footsteps echoed in the void. When I reached the middle, a wave of sudden cold hit me, taking my breath away. At the same moment, I heard a sound from above, as if someone was walking with heavy steps, but the upper floors were empty. The sound got closer, seeming to be right above me, then stopped. Goosebumps rose on my skin. Involuntarily, I lifted my head and looked up into the stairwell, but there was only darkness. For an instant, my eyes caught sight of a mark on the wood of the stair railing, said to have been left by a rope hanging from the gallows. The nursery was one of the saddest places. Knowing that little Thomas had died here made the air in the room feel heavier. When I entered, the energy I felt shifted. It was a strange mix of melancholy and childlike playfulness. My eyes fell on the old wooden crib in the corner. Just then, I could swear I heard a faint, joyless sound of a child laughing. The sound didn't echo in the room, it just was there. And then it stopped. Walking around the room, I felt something brush against my leg, as if a small child was playing around me, but I saw no one. For a moment, I saw an old toy, a wooden ball, lying on the floor, slightly roll away on its own. Violet's room. This was the room whose story most broke my heart, the place where her unhappy end occurred. When I entered, I was suddenly overwhelmed by an intense feeling of sorrow and despair. It wasn't my own emotion. It belonged to someone else. My eyes were drawn to an old chair in the corner. Just then, beside the chair, I saw a misty, semi-transparent figure sitting. It looked like a young woman. Could it be Violet? Her face was indistinguishable, but her posture held a deep sadness. The feeling of sorrow filling the room intensified. Just then, a small figurine sitting on the table in the corner suddenly fell to the floor with a crash, the sound filling the entire house. Then in front of the window, a shadow suddenly appeared, and the window slammed shut violently, plunging the room into darkness. I felt trapped inside by an unseen force. The upstairs courtroom. This was known both as the place where Judge Ames committed suicide and its proximity to where Violet died. When I stepped into it, the air immediately grew colder, and that stale odor was stronger here, as if old judges, witnesses, and the accused were still present. I looked at the empty judge's bench. Just then, a sudden loud sound came from the middle of the room, as if something wooden had been struck violently like a gavel, but there was no gavel, followed by an instant, muffled groan, as if someone had fallen in agony. In that moment, the final moments of Judge Ames flashed through my mind. As the night went on, the experiences became more direct and unsettling. Walking through the mansion, what I saw was no longer just sounds and shadows. Walking down one corridor, a door beside us suddenly slammed shut violently, the sound echoing through the entire house. In another room, the light of an old lamp standing by the window suddenly began to flicker erratically, on and off, unnaturally. Sometimes I felt as if someone was pulling my hair or tugging at my clothes. A disgusting, stale odor appeared and vanished in the most unexpected places. One of the most terrifying moments happened again on the stairs. As I ascended the stairs alone, when I reached the middle, I suddenly felt a presence behind me. When I turned, no one was there, but a wave of icy air surrounded me, and I felt a strong push on my shoulder. I grabbed the railing to keep from falling. At the same moment, I heard a muffled, broken hirilti sound from above. It sounded like Yankee Jim being hanged. For an instant, I thought I saw a blurry, dark figure with legs swaying in the darkness at the very top of the stairs. The feeling of the presence was so strong, it took my breath away. I scrambled back down the stairs, my heart feeling like it would burst. Another moment occurred in Violet's room. The sad energy of that room had drawn me back. When I entered again, the figure sitting in the chair was clearer this time. She looked like a young woman. Could it be Violet? Her face wasn't visible, but her posture held the same deep sorrow. The feeling of grief surrounding the room intensified. Just then, a small figurine on the table in the corner suddenly fell to the floor with force, the sound echoing through the house. Then, in front of the window, a shadow suddenly appeared, and the window slammed shut violently, plunging the room into darkness. I felt trapped inside by an unseen force. As the night drew on, fear gave way to exhaustion and a sense of losing my mind. Every sound, every shadow, every cold spot, every smell was evidence that this house was a living, hunting entity. The Whaleys, Yankee Jim, Judge Ames, Little Thomas, Violet, all of them or none of them were there. But the energy that was there was real. It was malevolent. And it did not want me there. At one point, in one of the oldest parts of the house, I could swear I heard a whisper coming from the walls, saying my own name, the whisper growing, taking on an accusing, threatening tone. It felt as if the spirits in the house were judging me as an intruder. As dawn broke, the intensity within the mansion slowly subsided. The sounds died down, the coldness lessened, but that strange, stale odor still lingered. Exhausted and trembling with fear, I walked through the house. The Whaley House in the daylight looked like that grand but old house again. But for me, this house was now more than just a historical structure. It was a living, breathing nightmare built on a graveyard, within which tragedy and trapped souls resided. Leaving the Whaley House, I knew I was leaving behind more than just the night. I was leaving behind an experience etched into my soul. A series of images burned into my mind. The sounds I had heard that night, the figures I had seen, the touches I had felt, the push on my shoulder and that repulsive odor, they continued to live in my mind, in my soul. The curse or tragedy of the Whaley House had not stayed confined to that house. The door that had opened for me that night would never fully close again. I had escaped from that house, but the shadow of the Whaley House, the nightmare built on a graveyard, would follow me wherever I went. That living history, that officially designated haunting, had become a part of me, and I would carry the weight of that legacy forever.